The room fell silent the moment I said it. Not that polite silence that people deliberately overlook, but the kind of silence that presses against your ears. My husband blinked once, as if he had misunderstood me. His mother stopped chewing, and for the first time that evening I did not smile. My name is Elena. I am 34 years old. I have been married for 7 years, and until that moment I was the woman that everyone has described as reasonable, calm, and straightforward, easy to pass over easily in dealing. I earned more than my husband, financed most of our lifestyle, and was still treated like a guest in my own marriage, especially from his mother Marina, who believed that my salary was a family resource, which was hers from birth. This dinner started like dozens before it. Her apartment smelled of overcooked chicken and lemon cleanser. The table was set too formally, as if we were strangers who were calling for approval. Marina asked polite questions with sharp edges. The kind of questions that sound harmless until you play them back in your head later. "So, Elena, are bonus payments still so unpredictable?" she asked, glancing briefly at my purse. "It must be stressful to never know exactly how much extra money you really have," I answered calmly. "I always did that," I said. "My job is stable." I said I was grateful. I didn't say anything about the fact that my salary paid for the car we came with, the vacation she bounced with, or the medical bill, which she had tacitly blamed on my husband last month. Then she laughed softly, indulgently. "Well," she said, turning to my husband, "at least your income can help the family if it is necessary. That's what wives are for, after all." Something in me finally came together. I looked directly at my husband, not at her, at him, and calmly and clearly warned him that one more word from his mother about my salary would finally put an end to any polite conversation, that I would then explain things myself, right? About borders, about money, about possessions. He did not answer. He just reached for his water glass, lowered his gaze, and Marina smiled, as if she had already won. That's when I realized that it had never been about this dinner. It had never been about that, and I had had enough of waiting for him to choose a side. On the way home, the city lights blurred behind the windshield, and my husband didn't say a word. Silence has weight when it is consciously chosen. I watched as his fingers tightened around the steering wheel and waited for him to defend me or at least acknowledge what had happened. He didn't. Instead, he exhaled and said, "You shouldn't have made it so uncomfortable." Unpleasant, not humiliating, not abusive. Unpleasant. At that moment, the pattern suddenly became clear. Marina had always disguised her comments as a concern. Questions about my generosity, suggestions to help the family, jokes about the fact that my job had just been luckier than his, and every time he had downplayed it. "I'm told you don't mean it that way." Told me to ignore. I was told that family is just family. But family does not send payment requests in the middle of the night. The family does not forward any renovation offers for later. Family does not count my income as a future inheritance. That night, lying awake next to him, I realized that this print was not an oversight. He was organized, and I was the only one who pretended not to see it. The first crack came a week later, disguised as sanity. My husband casually mentioned at the cafe that his mother was thinking about reducing her size. He said it like a neutral fact, like the weather. Then he added that she was wondering if we could help out financially for a few months. We felt the word was wrong. I asked, "How much?" He did not answer immediately. This break already told me everything. When he finally named the sum, it corresponded almost exactly to my monthly net income. Not savings, not extra money. I laughed briefly and surprised myself once. "And you agreed to this?" He frowned. I said we'll talk about it. But talking, I had learned that, was just the warm-up for approval. That night I opened my laptop and scrolled through our joint accounts. The small transfers, which I had previously ignored, suddenly ried neatly against each other. Invoices for things I had never used, subscriptions I had never approved, gifts labeled miscellaneous. Was not a single great betrayal. There were dozens of small ones, carefully normalized, and the worst part was that he thought I'd never check. The actual humiliation, of course, did not happen in private. Of course not. Marina held a birthday dinner the following Sunday. Extended family, neighbors, People who loved applause more than truth. I was wearing a simple dress, a neutral smile, and said nothing. I watched, listened, and counted the exits internally. In the middle of dessert, Marina got up and raised her glass. "I want to thank Elena," she said warmly. The eyes are shining for the fact that she is such a supportive wife. Some women forget after the wedding that money no longer belongs to them alone. Polite, approving laughter spread. My husband smiled. He actually smiled, and my chest tightened. Empty, no dramatic pain, rather clean, precise, almost surgical. I felt something in me just shut down. When I looked around the table, no one returned my gaze. I was no longer a person for her. I was a concept, a resource that was publicly appreciated. I got up and picked up my own glass. "To be clear," I said calmly, "because misunderstandings arise when people assume access that was never given to them." The room froze. Marina's smile disappeared. My husband whispered, "Sit down. I didn't do it." And it was at that very moment that everyone realized that I would no longer remain silent. I didn't cry after that. This surprised me the most myself. At home, I took a shower, changed my clothes, and sat down at the edge of the bed, while my husband paced restlessly up and down the room explaining. Tone of voice, intentions, embarrassments, everything except responsibility. His words slipped past me like static noise. I was already somewhere else inside. Rest does not come suddenly. She settles down as soon as a decision has been made. I opened my laptop again. Not angry, precisely. I listed everything. My income, my contributions, the accounts I had financed, the accesses I had casually allowed, because trust seemed easier than paperwork. I leave messages that I had ignored, demands that I had answered with silence, instead of a no. And I realized that silence had been understood as consent. So I corrected that. I called my bank and disconnected the accounts. I made appointments. I changed powers of attorney. I wrote a single email. Polite, clear, unemotional. There were limits and demands for repayment. No accusations, just facts. Revenge does not need noise. She needs timing. When I finally looked up, my husband was watching me, as if he had just realized that I was speaking a language that he had never bothered to learn. I smiled slightly. "Don't worry," I said. "I'll take care of it." The first call came 3 days later. Marina, sweet voice, too sweet. "Elena, darling, there seems to be a problem with the transfer this month." I let the silence stand just long enough for it to seem deliberate. "No," I said. "There is not. The access was temporary. This has now been corrected." Her breath caught. "But we expected this money." "I know," I answered calmly. "That's why I sent the email. Future expectations need approval. Earlier debits need clarification." She gave a brittle laugh. "You're exaggerating." "No," I said. "I'm precise." That same evening, my husband confronted me, papers in hand, confusion mixed with panic. "You didn't tell me you were doing all this." I looked him straight in the eye. "I warned you." He opened his mouth, closed it again, and tried again. "Mom is completely dissolved." "That's what I'm assuming," I said calmly. "She's just not used to accountability." The next day, a refund request landed in your inbox. Listed, dated, indisputable. And that's exactly where the tone of voice finally changed. Not anger, fear. Fear makes people careless. Marina stopped calling me and turned directly to my husband. Long messages, voice memos, tears. She said that I would humiliate her, that families do not keep accounts against each other, that good wives do not expose their parents. And for the first time, these words no longer reached me through him, because I had long since moved away from this triangle. One evening he came home late, reddened eyes, flat voice. "She says she will tell everyone that you are greedy, that you are destroying the family." I nodded. "She has already done this publicly. Do you remember the toast?" He sank down on the sofa as if something had finally collapsed inside him. "She says that if we don't fix this, she will have to sell the apartment." "That's your decision," I said gently. My calmness irritated him. When the deadline for repayment passed, I did not chase after her. I simply forwarded the documents to a lawyer whom I had quietly consulted weeks earlier. Not to complain, to make everything official. A letter arrived at Marina, and suddenly everyone wanted to talk to me in private, especially my husband. The turn did not come out loud. She never does. Marina did not call me. She did not scream. She did not apologize. She paid. Quietly, completely, every single euro. Because the lawyer had discovered something she never expected me to notice. Years of family help that had secretly leaked through my accounts had tax consequences that she could not afford to disclose. My money had not only been practical, it had covered them. When my husband finally really faced me and looked at me, his voice broke. "You could have ruined her." I shook my head.
No. I gave her a choice.
He asked if everything was still okay between us. That was the last clarity. "I warned you," I said quietly. "Not them, you." 2 weeks later I moved out. Peaceful, financially secure, legally clean. Marina lost access. My husband lost the comfort of silence. And I gained something back that I hadn't had for years. Control without cruelty. Money reveals a sense of entitlement. Boundaries reveal character. And I realized exactly who they really were the moment I stopped being useful to them.